Hi there, Karen Flaherty from Living by Human Design. Hope you're doing well today. Today's Human Design Weather is about the Gate 2, which started just a little while ago, and it's all about allocation of resources, how to save and spend money. Okay, so we've got the Sun in Gate 2, which comes off the bottom of the G center, and we've got the Earth coming off the top of the G center in the Gate 1. So as I said, it started around just today, May 3rd, around midday, and it goes until May 9th around noon also. The Sun is called allocation of resources, or basically how to save and spend money. But it can be about other things too. It's all kinds of resources, not just money. But money is the one we usually point to and think about. And then the Earth in Gate 1 is about making a creative contribution to the world. So the 2 is the most yin, most feminine gate in the chart, and the 1 is the most masculine in the chart. So it's literally the yin and yang again of balance in the chart, and how we kind of work with those. Again, this week, we've only got the 4323 defined all week, with the ajna and the throat being defined as centers, and then this channel of structuring defined. And so everything else is relatively open on the chart as far as the transits go. So the Gate 2, generally called allocation of resources, also called the direction of the self, or the receptive. The receptive in that it is the female energy in the chart, or the most female or feminine energy in the chart. And so it's about receiving, right? It's also called receiving. And then, or the receptive, I should say. It's called the receptive. In other words, it's there as the feminine embrace, if you will, of everything in humanity. It's really all about making things work for humanity, because the feminine is usually the one with the resources in the family, right? In the structure, in the, whether it's the tribe or the community or the healthcare, or however you want to think about it. A lot of women are in charge of the resources that are being used on a daily basis, being used in the family setting, being used to make decisions about what gets done. And that's what they mean by the receptive. We're the ones who I say, include myself as a feminine here, we're the ones who are making the decisions around which resources get used. Think about it when you're, using food or healthcare or anything else, clothing, anything else that's part of the daily rituals of life in terms of who gets what, right? It's usually the female who's making those decisions. The men traditionally might bring in the money, might actually provide the money, might make the money, but that's the Gate 14, right? That's not the Gate 2. The Gate 2 is what comes up against the Gate 14, and is the one that actually decides where things are saved and where they're spent and how the money is used. So they describe the receptive as, or this Gate 2, as the receptivity as the primal base through which any response is determined, the root of all action. And so again, it's the person who's in charge of those resources who gets to decide how they get saved or spent. In the incarnation crosses this week, it's the cross of direction, also sometimes called the cross of the Sphinx, the driver, and defiance. And then in the Gate 1, we've got the creative. It's all about creative self-expression, making a creative contribution to the world. It's called a number of different things, but it's definitely part of the individual circuit, as is the Gate 2. And creation, it's called creation as a primal force, the energy potential to manifest inspiration without limitation. So it's really here to make a difference in the world and to use that creativity to, not only bring inspiration, but to bring an energy to it that allows us to get things done. In the Gene Keys, it's entropy is the shadow, freshness is the gift, and beauty is the CD. So for the Gene Key 2, I love this picture that Richard Rudd put up. People don't need help, people need love. And it's something to think about as we think about what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, what's going on in other parts of the world where they're without water or food or other types of resources, right? People don't need help, they need love, is what Richard Rudd says with regard to the Gene Key 2 and the CD of unity, where we're really thinking of ourselves as all coming together and being one. The shadow here is dislocation. In other words, kind of not knowing where you are, being a little lost. In the repressive or victim sense, it's lost, and in the reactive sense, usually comes with some anger. It's being regimented, regimented in terms of how things are described, for example, in some religions, in some science, in some theologies, which, of course, also could be considered religions, in some institutions, in some bureaucracies. It can get kind of regimented. An army, for example, can be rather regimented, right? They do that for a reason. It's to keep people, to keep the resources encased, right, in a formation. The gift is orientation, where he's saying that the dislocation is associated with more fear than trust. We've got orientation when we can trust. The shadow of dislocation is when we're fearful, when we think that we're isolated, when we think that we're lost, or we're the only ones doing whatever we're doing. It can be very isolating. It can be the kind of thing that makes us feel very alone. And so what he's saying is that the gift of orientation makes us feel like we're in a location that makes sense, right? Where we're orienting ourselves in the unity of a community, for example, or in whether it's a church or an institution or a family or a culture or a tribe, whatever it is, we're orienting ourselves in that community that allows us to feel much better, to trust, to know that there's security, to know that there's love, to know that there's food and water and clothing and all the things that we need, all the resources we need. If you're dislocated as a refugee, for example, coming from Ukraine, you don't feel like you may not feel like you're trusting. You may not feel like you may feel, quite disoriented, displaced, certainly, and with probably without the knowledge of where the next food or clothing or a bath is going to come from. So that's a dire situation, and it's difficult. It's difficult for everybody, and it's difficult for us to see that. I think that's probably why so many people's hearts are on the side of Ukraine, because they feel as if they're being dislocated for no reason. Being in this Gene Key or Gate 2 this week is pretty profound, because it is all about resources, and it is about making sure that those who need the resources are having the resources. So, and the CD is unity, thinking of it as the highest level of that being, kind of oneness, unity consciousness, and coming together. That doesn't mean that everybody's the same. It's not, again, that we're regimented. It's that we're all allowed to do what we want to do, to have autonomy over our own bodies, to have a say in how we are fed and clothed and resourced, to have the possibility to create those resources and the ability to provide those resources for those who might need them at the time, and giving them with love so that they can be helped, right? Because, as he says, people don't need help, they need love. So one of the quotes from the Gene Key's book is, "It is because we now see ourselves as separated from nature that we feel this great collective fear." So one of Richard's main points is that our disorientation or dislocation is a result of not that, if we were to be in sync with nature, be in a blessing and not a right, that we have a right to the water, a right to the sunlight, a right to the air that we breathe, and keep treating it as part of the oneness of all of us, because we're part of nature too. We're not disassociated from nature. We are part of nature. We are all nature. So we all are part of nature. When we dissociate ourselves from that nature, that's when we feel this collective fear. He also says that the more that you let go into the feminine, yielding quality of this gift, the more universal power floods through you. So his point is that the more we stop pushing, stop resistance, stop trying to overpower other parts of our society or community, the more we'll feel as if we are in the synchronicity, that we're in the flow, and that we have a power that allows us to go from one task to another with very little resistance. And that's a good thing. So we've got a few personalities born in the Sun Gate too, including George Clooney, Tony Blair, Sigmund Freud, Adele, who we'll be talking about in a moment. A bunch of leaders, right? Karl Marx, Golda Meir, Don Rickles, the comedian, Bing Crosby, Johannes Brahms, Willie Mays, Eva Peron, another leader. You can see how some of them loved their people and provided for them, and others took from them. It's the shadow versus the gift, and in any other role that you play. So let's talk about Adele. So as you probably know, Adele is a singer-songwriter. She's had quite a bit of fame and fortune. She is, her last name is Adkins. Actually, her entire name is Adele Laurie Blue Adkins. She was born in near London, in Tottenham, England, on May 5th in 1988. She is a manifester. So she is a manifester by energy type. Oh, sorry, let me correct that. Sorry, she has a 2-5 profile. I made a mistake, a typo there. So she's a 2-5 profile. I do have the exact, well, at least what I found to be the exact birth time is 8:19 in the morning. And so she is a 2-5 by the profile. So 2 is the bit of a hermit. And then the 5 is a projection field. It's about the heretic. So she's got something different to say. As she says it, but she is a manifester. So I just found it very interesting that she's had wild success, and basically the world knows her. She's known as a British icon, even though she's only just turning 32, I guess, or 34. She's turning 34. She was born in 1988. She'll be turning 34, and she is someone who is emotional. She's got the emotional solar plexus defined. She also has this entire channel of the salesperson with the will center and the spleen defined. And she's got the throat, of course, and the G center defined. And she is a manifester because she doesn't have the sacral defined, but she does have the this throat to the solar plexus direct connection, which is what makes her a manifester. And that linked to the from the throat to the solar plexus is the 1222, which is an individual energy. This is an individual energy from the 20 to the 10. This is a tribal energy from the 44 to the 26. And that's all she has. So she's definitely more on the individual side, and she is emotional, but she has this entire channel of the salesperson. We call it the channel of the salesperson because it's got the spleen defined and the will defined on both ends. The will being very empowering, it makes people feel good, it makes them feel like they can do anything. And the spleen, which basically brings them in. And so I should do that in the opposite order, because the spleen brings them in, and then the spleen kind of brings people in with this 44, which allows her to find the right people to work with her, whether it's vendors or associates or partnerships or part of the business circuit. And so really it's more about the people that she works with rather than the people that she's in relationship with romantically. So anyway, that 4 allows her to find the right people, and she does have it both conscious and unconscious. And then the 26 is the gate of integrity, and also about being able to close the deal. So as I understand it, she's in negotiations right now for various different places to be in what do they call it, be in residence in Las Vegas. Because I guess, it didn't work out for whatever reason last month or in February, when she was supposed to be in Las Vegas in residence. So now she's looking for different places. And so for her, that's pretty natural because she's not somebody she's a manifester. She's not going to put up with stuff she doesn't like. And if she didn't like the terms, or she didn't like the dates, or it didn't work for her, as she said, because of COVID and a number of other things going on with regard to being ready to be on stage, then she wasn't going to do it. There's really not a lot of space between what a manifester wants to do and what actually happens. They usually get what they want. She does have the open head and open ajna, so she's constantly got lots going on up there. She does have the gate of ideas, no surprise there, right? And the ideas is in her moon, so she's totally motivated by having new ideas. Now, what I saw was interesting was that she has with all the fame and fortune she has 4 albums, literally 4 albums. And I was surprised by that. But one came out when she was 19, and it was called 19. That was in 2008. She's had 2 more after that. And then the last one came out in 2021, which she called 30, which was basically for her 30th birthday. And that's it. She's won lots of Grammys. She had, an Oscar-winning song in there, Skyfall, for one of the James Bond movies. She's had quite a bit of fame and fortune and all the great things that go with that. But she's also needed to watch her health because she did have a benign polyp on her vocal cords at one point. And I think it was, I want to say around 2011, I guess right after the second album came out, just before she had the baby and her son, and she needed time off, and she told everybody she needed time off. And so the time between the 2011 album and the 2015 album included her recovery from the throat surgery, as well as the birth of her child and marriage. So there was a lot going on in her life, and so she made room for that. So there wasn't another album for 4 years, even though both of the first albums were very, very popular. And so she works on her own schedule. She's not, even though she has the open route, she's not being pushed by anybody. She probably does, didn't mind living alone in England, and perhaps now in Las Vegas, with her son and hermaning, basically, during COVID. Most manifestors I know loved COVID. They needed a little break. They got a break, and they were able to take care of themselves and do some of the work, or just completely rest. She does have the 2010, which is about being able to speak at the right moment. And then the 10 is the love of the self. But what we do sometimes call this is blazing saddles, because it can be a little bit confrontational when it comes to either blaming or being blamed for things. And so that's in that channel itself, being connected from the throat to the G, when she gets criticized, she does not like it. And so while much of her career has been wonderful accolades, although I'm sure some people were wondering where she was or what was going on after the throat surgery, why did it take so long to come back? She came back when she was good and ready. And but the other thing with this 2010 channel is that she doesn't take criticism well. So she basically, she was, it seemed, quite upset when people questioned her about the canceling the shows in February and March. Many people were upset. They questioned her, and she had a few words. So it can be that kind of give and take. She takes criticism to heart, is what happens. She definitely, the G is all about the soul and self-direction, and she takes it into her soul when she is criticized. So she doesn't like to be criticized. She also has the gate 30 in her Mercury, which is the gate of intensity or desire. That kind of amps up everything else in the chart. And as a manifester, working on her own terms and, being the woman that she is. As a woman, it's kind of difficult sometimes to be the manifester, but she's now kind of come into her own, I would say. Having lost weight, having great success, being recognized with so many awards, she's come into that on her own. She does have, I just noticed the gate 10 is in, let's see, Uranus and Saturn on both sides, both conscious and unconscious. So that's kind of unusual to have the 10 love of the self 4 times in your chart. So it is about loving yourself and then empowering on the upside, empowering others. On the low side, it is the blaming and guilt, and that can show up from time to time. Let's see what else. She's got the 36, which is all about crisis and drama. So she is someone who might like to create a little drama when she gets bored. She does have the gate 49, which is all about principles, and the 6, which is basically makes her a mama bear in terms of protecting her child. Off the sacral, the only one she has is the 42, which is the gate of completions. So whatever she does start, she will finish. She does have the gates 38 and 58, which is 38 is the fighter. She'll know what's worth fighting for. And the 58 is the joy of life. And that shows up over here in her Neptune. So that's kind of joy of life. That makes it kind of part of her spiritual job on earth, as well as the 38. So fighting for what's worth fighting for, and then bringing people to the joy of life as a result of it. She's got the 36 twice also. That's that gate of crisis and drama. So there are going to be a few crises in her life that are either coming about or of her own making. That's a possibility. She also has the gate 13, which is nice to have as someone in her position, because she will she's trusted. She's a trusted listener. She will listen to her the people around her. She'll listen to the people who are supportive of her, and she'll also listen to her fans. I wouldn't put her in the same realm as like a Lady Gaga with the fans, but it seems like she's definitely willing to listen to the fans. That's usually what that gate entails. So that's and this right angle cross of the Sphinx is also, it's a leadership position. It's literally the Sphinx kind of seen from above and being able to make decisions as a result of that. So the 1 is about making a creative contribution to the world. The 2 is that allocation of resources. She has been very successful in creating resources for herself and her family. She's got that 13, which is about the listener, and the 7, which is the gate of democratic, small d, democratic leadership. And so she's pulled into a number of projects probably that, or asked to come into a number of projects that she might not have done on her own, but that she's happy to on stage persona, or the leader, or the person who's getting the most attention during these outings and events. So that's Adele. Happy birthday, Adele. And then for the rest of us, the gate 2 this week will perhaps have us questioning or looking into the resources that we're using, how we're using them, where, kind of what the different outputs are, how they're working for us. It might be a good time to look at your investments. It might be a good time to check out whether you want to sell the house or not, or if it's a good time to sell anything else, or buy something, perhaps. So I hope that helps, and I hope you have a great week. And just remember that it is a very feminine energy. It's a very, it is an individual energy, but it is also very, very much about oneness and unity and connection. So I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you soon. And if you're celebrating, have a happy Mother's Day. Take care.